Just 1 minute ago, the palace did the unthinkable. Without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. Meghan's private emails, long rumoured, fiercely protected, were released to the public. And within moments of the announcement, Prince Harry collapsed. Not metaphorically, not politically, physically. What was in those messages that could trigger such a devastating reaction? And why would the palace risk everything to expose them now? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The announcement came not as a leak whispered through tabloids, but as a formal declaration delivered with surgical precision. An emergency press briefing. No build-up, no hints. Just a stark statement from palace officials that transparency demands clarity. Those 3 words landed like a verdict. Around the world, newsrooms scrambled to confirm what seemed impossible. Private correspondence protected by law, shielded by protocol, suddenly public property. There had been no legal warning, no gradual trickle of information to soften the blow. It was immediate, total. Calculated. Confusion rippled through the public. Supporters of Harry and Meghan demanded answers. Critics leaned forward, sensing validation. But inside the storm of global reaction was a quieter, more devastating moment. Reports confirm that Harry was present when the notification reached him. The release was not something he heard about hours later through a sympathetic aide. He saw it unfold in real time. A notification, a headline, a surge of disbelief that quickly drained the colour from his face. Witnesses describe a shift in him, a stillness. Then shock so raw, it stripped away every layer of royal composure he had spent a lifetime mastering. This was not the hardened veteran of media wars. This was a husband confronted with something deeply personal and brutally exposed. Within seconds, his breathing faltered. Words failed him. And then he collapsed. Not as a symbol, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a man overwhelmed by the sudden weight of betrayal. The timing raises chilling questions. Why now? Why release private emails at a moment when tensions had appeared to cool? Insiders suggest this was no impulsive act. Months of internal debate may have led to this decision. Legal groundwork quietly laid, strategic timing aligned with broader royal agendas. The message was clear: the palace would not allow its narrative to be challenged without response. Yet beneath the political calculation lies something far more painful. Initial whispers suggest the emails contradict certain public narratives that Harry and Meghan had shared in interviews. If true, that means this was not merely an exposure of private emotion, but a confrontation with truth, or at least the palace's version of it. And that is what cuts deepest. Because betrayal from the press can be fought, betrayal from strangers can be endured. But betrayal from family carries a different sting. It fractures something fundamental. As headlines multiply and speculation intensifies, one reality remains undeniable. The palace did not act lightly. They chose escalation. They chose exposure. And Harry paid the first visible price. But what exactly did those emails contain that could shake a prince to his core and push the palace into such a ruthless move? The emails weren't casual conversations. They weren't harmless exchanges. They were detailed, raw, and deeply personal communications sent during the most fragile period of royal tension. Lines written in confidence, frustrations expressed behind closed doors, strategic discussions never meant for daylight. But buried within those digital threads were statements that, if true, could rewrite the narrative the world has believed for years. What stunned observers first was the timeline. These messages reportedly stretched across several of the monarchy's most turbulent chapters, moments the public thought they understood. State visits, private family negotiations, the months leading up to departure. Each email now sits like a time-stamped confession, tying emotion to event, grievance to decision. They do not read like press releases. They read like a diary written in real time, where frustration was not polished for cameras and uncertainty was not softened for interviews. There are passages that speak of hierarchy, of feeling diminished by centuries-old protocol, of navigating a structure that demanded obedience while offering little reassurance. The tone is not always furious. Sometimes it is exhausted, sometimes quietly wounded. Meghan describes confusion about rank, about access, about who truly held influence behind ceremonial smiles. Those reflections, once private, now challenge the image of seamless royal unity the palace worked tirelessly to project. Yet it is the strategic undertones that ignite the fiercest debate. Certain emails allegedly outline discussions about media positioning, about shaping perception, about timing announcements, about countering negative narratives before they hardened into public belief. Critics are already pointing to these passages as evidence of calculation. Supporters argue they reveal survival instincts in an environment that felt hostile. The difference between strategy and self-protection has never seemed so thin. Interwoven with those tactical exchanges are deeply emotional confessions. Fears of isolation, anxiety about public scrutiny, moments of doubt about whether love alone could withstand institutional pressure. These are not the words of someone detached. They are the words of someone grappling with an identity crisis under a spotlight that never dims. And yet, within the same threads, there are references to conversations with Harry, private reassurances, and shared plans that appear to diverge from how events were later described publicly. That contradiction is what has shaken confidence most violently. Not because it proves deception outright, but because it invites doubt. Subtle critiques of senior royals surface as well. Not explosive accusations, but pointed observations. Comments about indifference. About silence when support was expected. About internal politics that prioritize tradition over compassion. Read in isolation, they might seem like personal grievances. Read together, they form a portrait of escalating tension that feels far more deliberate than previously acknowledged. The tone shifts as the emails progress. Vulnerability slowly blends with resolve. Confusion sharpens into intention. What begins as emotional venting evolves into measured planning. That evolution is what the palace now claims necessitated disclosure, a so-called clarification of public record. They argue the release corrects misrepresentations. But critics question whether transparency can truly coexist with selective exposure. And as those words spread across headlines, Harry wasn't just reading emails, he was watching his world unravel in real time. It wasn't staged. It wasn't symbolic. It was sudden. Sources say Harry's face drained of colour as the headlines flashed across his screen. His breathing changed. His posture stiffened. And within seconds, he fell. For a man who has faced war zones, relentless press storms, and royal exile, what could possibly hit harder than all of that combined? Those present describe a silence that felt heavier than noise. There was no dramatic outburst, no shouted denial, just a quiet, devastating recognition. He had read enough. Enough to understand the magnitude. Enough to realize that this was not a rumor spiraling out of control. Not a tabloid distortion that could be dismissed with a statement. These were Meghan's own words, preserved in digital permanence, now dissected by millions. And he knew instantly that the damage would not be temporary. Shock does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it freezes. Those who witnessed the moment say his expression shifted from confusion to something far more fragile: betrayal layered over disbelief. It was not merely the exposure of private emails. It was the realization that the release had come from within the institution he once defended. That is what fractured him. Not criticism, not public debate, but the knowledge that this was sanctioned, authorized, delivered with royal precision. Medical assistance arrived quickly, but the physical collapse was only a symptom. The deeper rupture was psychological. For years, Harry has spoken about the toll of media narratives, about the relentless pressure of scrutiny. He has carried unresolved trauma tied to public humiliation and loss. Now, in a single stroke, the very system he accused of failing him had turned the spotlight inward once again, this time illuminating his own household. The weight of public exposure is not abstract, it is suffocating. It strips privacy, reframes intentions, and invites strangers to judge context they will never fully understand. As the emails spread across global platforms, commentary multiplied. Analysts debated tone, critics searched for inconsistencies, supporters defended vulnerability. But in that storm of opinion, Harry was confronting something intensely personal. The possibility that narratives he helped construct were now unraveling under evidence he could not control. There is also symbolism in this moment that cannot be ignored. After years of escalating tension, interviews, memoirs, carefully timed revelations, the palace has responded not with emotion, but with documentation. Paper trails, archived words. It signals a shift from rhetorical warfare to recorded history. And for Harry, that shift may have felt like the ground disappearing beneath him. Because documents do not argue, they exist. News of his collapse spread almost as rapidly as the emails themselves. Headlines that began with exposure quickly pivoted to concern. The world, once dissecting Meghan's messages, now turned its focus to Harry's well-being. Sympathy surged in some corners, skepticism hardened in others. But no one could deny the image of a prince physically overwhelmed by the consequences of disclosure. And yet, this moment is not an ending. It is an ignition point. Because if a single release could bring him to his knees, what does it suggest about what remains unseen? What conversations are still buried? What strategies are still unfolding behind the surface? The collapse may have been sudden, but it was built on years of strain, unresolved conflict, and quiet resentment. And now that the first crack has become visible, the structure itself feels unstable. But the physical collapse was only the beginning, because behind it lies a deeper story of trust, power, and retaliation. This wasn't random. The palace calculates everything. Timing is never accidental. So why release Meghan's private emails at this exact moment? Insiders suggest months of internal debate, legal maneuvering, and mounting pressure. Was this retaliation? A warning? Or a desperate move to regain control of a narrative slipping through royal fingers? For years, tension has simmered beneath carefully crafted public statements. What appears composed on the surface often masks frustration within. Senior leadership, according to those familiar with the inner workings, had grown weary of what they viewed as a one-sided war of words. Interviews, documentaries, memoirs, each revelation from Harry and Meghan carried emotional weight and global reach. And with each public disclosure, pressure mounted inside the institution to respond not with emotion, but with evidence. That pressure did not explode overnight. It accumulated. Private conversations turned sharper. Legal advisors were consulted quietly, not for reaction but for preparation. Documents were reviewed. Policies examined. The groundwork, sources suggest, was laid months earlier, long before the public ever sensed a shift. The palace does not improvise under fire. It prepares for it. Behind closed doors, disputes reportedly continued long after headlines faded. There were arguments about loyalty, about dignity, about the monarchy's responsibility to protect its legacy. Some believed silence was strength. Others argued silence had become weakness. The fear was not merely reputational damage. It was erosion of authority, of credibility, of control over the story itself. And then there is the broader context. Public fatigue had begun to settle in. The ongoing feud, once gripping and explosive, risked becoming repetitive. In such an environment, a decisive move can reshape momentum. By releasing Meghan's private emails, the palace did not simply answer criticism, it reframed the battlefield. Instead of defending tradition, it positioned itself as defending truth. The phrase "restore credibility" circulated internally as both justification and mission. The timing also aligns with critical upcoming royal engagements moments designed to project unity and stability. Allowing unresolved tension to hover over those events could have undermined their impact. By striking first, the palace may have calculated that it could contain the fallout before larger ceremonial milestones unfolded. It was a gamble, a bold one. Yet this was not just a message to Harry and Meghan. It was a signal to anyone within the royal orbit who might consider challenging the institution publicly. The implication is unmistakable. Documentation exists. Records remain. Narratives can be contested. In a monarchy built on continuity, the power of archived words can be more potent than emotional testimony. Still, strategy carries risk. By escalating the conflict, the palace risks deepening an already fragile family fracture. What was once a simmering divide now feels dangerously close to permanent rupture. And even if credibility is reclaimed in the eyes of some, the cost may be irreparable trust. Because for all the political maneuvering and calculated precision, this decision reverberates beyond strategy. It lands in the realm of blood and bond, of private loyalty and personal pain. And as analysts dissect motive and timing, one truth lingers beneath the surface. For Harry, this wasn't a chess move. It was a wound. Yet for Harry, this wasn't about strategy, it was about something far more personal. Imagine watching the world dissect your spouse's private words. Every sentence scrutinized, every emotion questioned. For Harry, the emails weren't political ammunition, they were personal. Intimate. Shared in trust. And now weaponized. As headlines spread, the prince faced a brutal crossroads: defend his wife at all costs, or confront truths he never expected to see exposed. From the beginning, Harry built his public identity around protection. He vowed explicitly and repeatedly that he would shield Meghan from the relentless machinery that once devoured his mother. That promise became more than romantic devotion. It became his mission. It justified distance from the institution. It fueled interviews. It anchored every decision to step away. And now, as those private emails ricochet across continents, that vow feels heavier than ever. Because protection becomes complicated when the threat is not a tabloid but the crown itself. The emotional weight of seeing private exchanges turned into global debate is suffocating. Words typed in moments of vulnerability now circulate stripped of context. Frustrations that were meant to be understood by one person are interpreted by millions. For Harry, this is not just exposure, it is violation. The intimacy of marriage has been cracked open, its private language translated into public controversy. Every phrase becomes a headline, every nuance becomes a battlefield. And yet beneath the instinct to defend lies something far more unsettling. Shock. Not just at the release but at the content itself. Some passages suggest strategy, foresight, careful positioning. Discussions that appear more deliberate than spontaneous. If those interpretations hold weight, Harry may be confronting an uncomfortable realization that parts of the narrative he believed were organic were, at least in moments, calculated. That realization does not diminish love, but it complicates certainty. This is where the conflict sharpens. Loyalty to a spouse demands unwavering solidarity. But loyalty to legacy, to history, to the institution that shaped him from birth, carries its own gravity. He has already chosen distance once. He has already burned bridges in pursuit of autonomy. Now he stands at another crossroads, one defined not by public declarations but by private doubt. Does he double down, defending Meghan without hesitation? Or does he pause, quietly reassessing the foundation beneath them? The psychological strain of public humiliation compounds everything. It is not simply about being criticized, it is about feeling exposed from every direction. Estranged from the palace, questioned by the public. watched by critics waiting for weakness. Even sympathy carries an edge, because it implies vulnerability. And vulnerability in royal life has always been dangerous. Isolation begins to creep in. Family ties are strained beyond recognition. Allies grow cautious. Public opinion fractures. In this storm, Harry may feel more alone than ever, caught between worlds he cannot fully return to, and a future that suddenly feels uncertain. The emails have not just reignited conflict, they have forced introspection. What did he overlook? What did he trust without question? And what must he confront now? This may be the breaking point not of health, but of identity. The moment when love, loyalty, pride, and doubt collide with brutal clarity. And as he grapples with that internal war, another drama unfolds in parallel. Quieter, but no less consequential. Meanwhile, inside the palace walls, reactions were unfolding that few outside could see. Behind ornate doors and guarded hallways, the atmosphere was tense, not celebratory, not triumphant. Controlled but heavy. Senior figures reportedly gathered in emergency discussions, aware that this move could permanently fracture what remains of royal unity. If the emails were a bombshell, their aftermath threatened to become an earthquake. This was not a victory meeting, it was containment. Those present understood the magnitude of what had just been unleashed. The decision to release private correspondence had not been taken lightly, but once executed, it could not be reversed. The institution prides itself on restraint, on calculated silence, on dignified distance from scandal. Now it stood at the center of a storm it had deliberately triggered. Private consultations began immediately. Senior royals, trusted advisors, and constitutional experts reportedly convened in urgent dialogue. The question was no longer whether the release was justified, it was whether the monarchy could withstand the backlash. Some argued the move was necessary, a firm stand against years of public accusation. Others worried it crossed an invisible boundary, turning a family conflict into a public spectacle of exposure. Public perception loomed large over every conversation. The monarchy survives not only on law and tradition, but on trust. If the public interprets this release as transparency, credibility may strengthen. If it is seen as vindictive, the damage could be historic. That fragile balance weighed heavily. There were concerns that sympathy might shift toward Harry and Meghan, particularly in light of his collapse. Compassion is unpredictable, and once ignited, it can erode carefully built authority. Internal divisions surfaced quietly. Some insiders reportedly questioned whether the emails should have remained sealed, whether discretion might have preserved long-term unity. Others insisted that silence had already cost too much. These disagreements did not erupt into open conflict, but they underscored a truth. Even within the palace, certainty was not unanimous. Legal teams moved swiftly. Any public disclosure invites response. Advisors began preparing for potential counteraction lawsuits, statements, even further revelations. Because if the palace had archives, so might Harry and Meghan. The fear of retaliatory disclosures lingered like a shadow over every strategic calculation. What if this was only the first layer? What if deeper, more damaging communications exist elsewhere? Media advisors worked in parallel, shaping language, refining tone, attempting to control a narrative that was rapidly spiraling beyond control. Words like clarification and accountability were emphasized, but perception cannot be scripted indefinitely. Critics already questioned whether the release reflected strength or desperation. Amid the strategy and legal maneuvering, a quieter realization began to settle. Something fundamental had shifted. Family conflict had moved from private tension to documented confrontation. The line between institution and blood had blurred publicly in a way that cannot easily be undone. Even if the palace maintains composure, relationships may never recover from this rupture. There was no applause, no sense of triumph, only the sobering acknowledgement that an irreversible step had been taken. The monarchy had chosen exposure over endurance, assertion over silence. And while the internal debates continued, One undeniable truth hovered over every guarded hallway: control, once exercised so forcefully, can never fully guarantee loyalty. But outside the palace gates, the world had already chosen sides. Within minutes, social media ignited. Hashtags exploded. Supporters rallied. Critics sharpened their knives. The release didn't clarify the narrative, it detonated it. Some saw transparency. Others saw cruelty. And as Harry's collapse became headline number one, the debate shifted from what Meghan wrote to whether the palace had crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. The reaction was immediate and merciless. Screens across the world filled with fragments of emails, highlighted phrases, isolated sentences stripped of context. For every voice defending the palace's decision as a necessary act of accountability, another condemned it as an unforgivable invasion of privacy. Sympathy and skepticism clashed in real time, colliding in a digital arena that feeds on outrage. The monarchy, once buffered by distance and decorum, now stood exposed to a storm it could not contain. Online analysts dissected every line as though decoding a state secret. Tone was examined, word choice scrutinized, timestamps debated. Entire threads were reconstructed to fit competing narratives. Supporters argued the emails revealed vulnerability and authenticity, proof of a woman struggling within an ancient system. Critics insisted they exposed strategy and contradiction, suggesting careful orchestration behind public statements. In this chaos, nuance disappeared. Interpretation became weaponized. At the heart of the debate lay a deeper question: does institutional authority justify private exposure? Legal experts and commentators weighed in, questioning whether the palace had crossed ethical boundaries. Privacy rights were invoked, precedents examined. Some framed it as a matter of transparency in public life. Others called it a dangerous expansion of power, an institution using its weight to dismantle personal boundaries. The tension between crown and citizen suddenly felt constitutional. International media escalated the framing. What began as a family dispute now carried the tone of a constitutional crisis. Commentators spoke of royal accountability, of historical shifts, of the delicate balance between tradition and modern expectations. The monarchy's global image, once anchored in stability, appeared fragile under renewed scrutiny. If the institution can expose one of its own, critics asked, what limits remain? Harry's collapse intensified the emotional stakes. Even those skeptical of his choices could not easily dismiss the image of a man physically overwhelmed. Empathy surged in unexpected corners. The narrative shifted from political strategy to human cost. Was this justice, or was it cruelty? Was it clarity or retaliation? The questions multiplied faster than answers could form. Calls for accountability rose on both sides. Some demanded further disclosures, arguing that full transparency was the only path forward. Others insisted the palace should answer for what they described as a breach of trust. Public opinion fractured along ideological lines, generational divides, and cultural perspectives. The feud had outgrown its origins. It now represented something broader, a clash between legacy and autonomy, tradition and personal narrative. Through it all, one truth remained clear: the monarchy's image had entered a new phase of vulnerability. It was no longer merely defending against accusation, it was being judged for its own actions. And judgment in the digital age is swift, relentless, and rarely forgiving. And yet, even amid the chaos, one looming question refuses to fade: what happens next? This is no longer just about emails, it's about survival, of reputations, of relationships, of the monarchy itself. The palace made a gamble, and gambles have consequences. Could this trigger further revelations? Legal battles? A permanent fracture between Harry and the institution he was born into? Or has the line already been crossed beyond repair? The immediate fallout is only the surface. Beneath it lies the possibility of retaliation, measured and deliberate. Harry and Meghan have never lacked a platform. If they perceive this release as betrayal rather than clarification, legal action could follow. Lawsuits, counterclaims, demands for accountability. And in a battle where documentation is now weaponized, the courtroom becomes an extension of the public arena. What begins as a family rupture risks transforming into a drawn-out legal war that drags the monarchy into unfamiliar territory. Beyond the personal lies the diplomatic dimension. The crown does not operate in isolation. It represents continuity across nations, traditions across continents. Strain within the royal household inevitably ripples outward. Commonwealth partners watch closely. Allies measure stability. A monarchy entangled in public conflict projects vulnerability, and vulnerability carries consequences. Confidence, once shaken, is difficult to restore. There are financial implications as well. Reputation fuels relevance, and relevance underpins influence. Charitable foundations, global partnerships, and ceremonial engagements rely on public goodwill. If trust erodes, so too does the soft power the monarchy wields. Investors of prestige and legacy may hesitate. Sponsors of tradition may question alignment. The institution may survive scandal, but sustained doubt is more corrosive. Inside the family, communication is likely fractured beyond recognition. Private lines that once carried reconciliation attempts may now be silent. Messages unsent, calls unanswered. Each disclosure deepens suspicion. Who authorized it? Who supported it? Who objected too quietly? In such an environment, even neutrality feels like betrayal. The cost is not merely strategic, it is emotional. Speculation intensifies around undisclosed material. If these emails existed, what else remains archived? Are there additional threads, additional exchanges waiting in reserve? The possibility alone creates tension. Because uncertainty is a weapon. And in a conflict fueled by revelation, the fear of the next disclosure can be as destabilizing as the first. Extended family members feel the tremor as well. Cousins, siblings, elders caught between loyalty and exhaustion. No one emerges untouched. Private grief mixes with public pressure. The monarchy's image of unity becomes harder to maintain when fractures are so visible. Public appearances, once choreographed symbols of continuity, now carry unpredictable undertones. Will Harry attend future events? Would reconciliation even be possible in such a charged atmosphere? And then there is the precedent. History records moments like this, decisions that alter the trajectory of institutions. By choosing exposure, the palace may have set a standard that future generations will inherit. Transparency has power, but so does restraint. The balance between them may define the monarchy's evolution from this point forward. Everything feels suspended, waiting for reaction, for retaliation, for resolution that may never arrive. The emails were the spark, but the fire has only begun to spread. And as speculation builds and alliances shift, the story grows heavier with each passing hour. But perhaps the most haunting question remains, what did Harry realize in that exact moment before he fell? In the split second before he collapsed, what truth hit him hardest? Was it betrayal? Regret? Confirmation of doubts he buried long ago? The emails may have shocked the world, but for Harry, they may have shattered something far deeper. Certainty. About his family, about his choices, about the cost of stepping away from a crown that never truly lets go, because certainty is what he has clung to through every storm. Certainty that leaving was necessary, certainty that protecting Meghan justified the rupture, certainty that truth, once spoken publicly, would liberate rather than entangle. But when those private emails surfaced, they did more than challenge a public narrative, they unsettled his internal one. In that brief, devastating moment before his body gave way, he may have felt the ground shift beneath convictions he believed were unshakable. The psychological aftermath now looms larger than the headlines. Collapse is not only physical exhaustion, It is emotional overload reaching its breaking point. Harry must now confront questions that refuse to quiet. Did he anticipate this possibility? Did he underestimate the institution he once understood from the inside? And most painfully, did he fully know every layer of the story unfolding within his own household? These are not accusations. They are doubts, and doubts can echo louder than criticism. Family estrangement, once described as temporary distance, begins to feel irreversible. When private correspondence becomes public ammunition, reconciliation becomes fragile. Trust erodes in silence long before it fractures publicly. Conversations that might have healed wounds now seem unimaginable. Pride hardens. Positions entrench. The bridge back to unity grows narrower with every revelation. And then there is Meghan's silence. In the wake of the release, her absence of immediate response speaks volumes. Is it strategy? Shock? Deliberate restraint? Silence can be powerful, but it can also signal calculation. The world waits for her voice, yet the longer it remains unheard, the more speculation expands. That silence hangs heavy over Harry's next move, amplifying uncertainty rather than easing it. Public trust hangs in the balance as well. The monarchy's decision to release private material may satisfy some demands for transparency, but it risks deepening suspicion among others. If private emails can surface once, what prevents it from happening again? The permanence of digital words is unforgiving. They cannot be retracted. They cannot be softened by memory. They exist, fixed and searchable, shaping perception indefinitely. For Harry, exile was once framed as liberation, freedom from protocol, freedom from hierarchy. Yet exile also carries isolation. When distance becomes permanent, when belonging is neither fully restored nor fully severed, the result is a lonely middle ground. He stands between worlds, no longer inside the institution, yet forever defined by it. Reconciliation remains uncertain. It requires humility, restraint, and a willingness to absorb pain without retaliation. Whether that path is still open remains unclear. The monarchy itself now stands at a crossroads between guarding tradition and embracing transparency. This moment may define how it evolves, or whether it fractures further. Because in the world of royalty, nothing stays buried forever, and this may be only the beginning of what's still to come. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.